Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi. My name is Nick Alzai Hazik bin Khairul, and I will present about introduction on Afghanistan and United States of America foreign policy. In today's 21st century, Afghanistan and US relations are without a doubt an international issue that's taken many lives on both sides. The Afghanistan-international relations had been in shambles prior to the event with the Afghan war that occurred in the 1978 until the 1992. Key players are not only limited to the US military forces in Al-Qaeda, but also the local Afghan forces. The United States of America stands on war on terrorism towards the act of the Taliban has led them to invade Afghanistan inadvertently sought a foreign policy. And even more so, the foreign policy of the US posed the impact of the foreign policy can still be seen today in the state of current Afghanistan.
Assalamualaikum and good morning. My name is Shamila Fibianan and I am the second presenter. Today, I will explain about the factors which influence United States of America and Afghanistan foreign policy. The first factor is the 9/11 incident. Before the occurrence of this event, US and Afghanistan had a relatively good international relation. However, this relationship began to falter when the UN Security Council adopted Resolution 1267, which linked Al-Qaeda and Taliban, two armed groups based in Afghanistan, as a terrorist organization. In an act of desperation, Al-Qaeda began to strengthen their relationship with Taliban by assassinating Ahmad Shah Massoud, the commander of the anti-Taliban coalition. This assassination served as a precursor to the assault on US, as it assured Osama bin Laden with Taliban protection following the 9/11 attacks. On 11 September 2001, Al-Qaeda militant seized 4 airliners and crashed them into the World Trade Center in New York and the Pentagon in Washington. The attack claims the life of about 3,000 individuals. Following this incident, President George W. Bush declared an American-led global counterterrorism campaign with support from NATO, termed War on Terror, on several countries believed to be safe haven for terrorist groups. When Afghanistan fails to answer US demand in surrendering all of Al-Qaeda leaders who hide in their country, US and the United Allies began their occupation in Afghanistan, which lasted for 13 years, from 2001 until 2013.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Azri bin Dalan, and today I will be talking about the second and third factors that influencing Afghanistan and US foreign policy. The second factors of the US and Afghanistan foreign policy is Afghanistan ongoing tribulation. As you can see, the future of US policy to Afghanistan cannot be successfully or fully assessed without a more in-depth analysis of Afghanistan currently and existing security, political and economic landscape and their impact on US strategic objective. In this context, there is a survey conducted among the Afghanistan observers that shows that Afghanistan people are still sufferers. Firstly, we go take a look in the security environment in rural areas, which is collapsing, while urban areas and communication lines remain secure despite a growing Taliban threat. Secondly, we can see that the political situation at the national level is poor but relatively stable, as there is ongoing corruption in governmental institutions continues to undermine the regime's effectiveness and legitimacy. Thirdly, we can see that Afghanistan economic conditions are difficult times, with growth rates contracting as a result of reduction in government spending. In addition, the Afghanistan also has taken a toll as they encounter a massive security downturn, with more than 40% of its area is either under Taliban administration or in conflict. Moving on to the third factors, it can be seen that US has an interest and objective to Afghanistan. It is because following up the incident that occurred on September 11, 2001, the primary goal of US military actions in Afghanistan in the immediate aftermath was to eliminate the potential of such haven for this kind of terrorists. This goal was initially intended to halt or stop Taliban rampage on Afghanistan, but when success in that regard proven difficult, the US approach shifted by 2010 to focus on shifting conflict resolution to Afghan responsibility, with Washington funds its cause. Given Afghanistan's inadequate infrastructure, state capacity limitation, and the ferocity of the insurgency, the other basic goal of stabilizing Afghanistan, even through robust economic development and improved governance, was increasingly considered as unattainable. As we can see from the report given, we can see that a total of 425 million was contributed by the United States to the Afghanistan, which was the highest among the UN members to Afghanistan, and it surpassed previous year's humanitarian donation. Hence, it is why they wanted to exit Afghanistan in 2021. I will pass to the next presenter to talk about role of international relation actors.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Hakim bin Jamaluddin, and I will present about the role of international relation actors. For the first aspect pertaining to the United States roles in international relations with Afghanistan is the war on terror policy. As everyone knows, the terrorist attack were carried out against the Nation Financial Center in New York, the United States military headquarters at the Pentagon, and its civil air transportation system on 11 September 2001. Due to the incident, United States has responded to protect its citizens by establishing a new government agency and conducted numerous military operations abroad aimed at eliminating threats and increasing stability. The impact is United States has invaded Afghanistan from 2001 until 2021. The second role of international relations actors played by the United States in this crisis is assist Afghanistan in humanitarian and economic aspect. After United States and the Taliban signed the Doha Agreement on 29 February 2020, United States has withdrawn their forces from Afghanistan. United States has made several significant efforts in collaboration with the international community to assist the Afghan people in times of humanitarian and economic disaster after the withdrawal. United States also provided humanitarian aid to the people of Afghanistan through United Nations agencies and non-governmental organizations. This effort has been continued by the United States to provide life-saving humanitarian assistance and help meet the basic needs of the Afghan people. Beyond basic needs, the United States has also supported programs designed to improve human rights in Afghanistan, especially for women, girls, and minority communities.
The next actors in this international relationship is Afghanistan. Following the overthrow of the Taliban administration after the US intervention in 2001, the new government of Afghanistan under President Hamid Karzai has maintained a good diplomatic ties with the United States. During this period, Afghanistan relied heavily on US financial assistance to reconstruct the country, amounting to 2.26 trillion to the Afghan National Security Forces, building national roads, government, and educational institutions. Afghanistan has also signed several agreements with the US during this period, including US-Afghanistan Strategic Partnership Agreement in 2015, which offers a long-term framework for cooperation between Afghanistan and the US upon the withdrawal of American soldiers. After the withdrawal of American soldiers from Afghanistan in 2021, Taliban has seized back controls over the country, which was caused by the Doha Agreement between the US and the Taliban in 2020 without the involvement of the then Afghanistan government. Since the takeover, Afghanistan under the new administration of Taliban vows to forget their violent past and seek to build a ties with US while urging them to release upward of 10 billion in funds that were frozen when the Taliban took power. However, the US has not yet made any decision as to whether to recognize the Taliban as a legitimate government of Afghanistan. That recognition is crucial not only for the Taliban own legitimacy but also for the nation's own survivability after their access to loan was cut off by the US.
Next, for the non-state actors, there are two parties involved in the United States-Afghanistan crisis. The first one is Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or also known as OIC. The first aspect pertaining to the OIC rules in international relations throughout the crisis involve United States and Afghanistan is OIC welcomes US Taliban peace deal. After the withdrawal of United States troops from Afghanistan, US was imposed sanctions and caused many institutions and government to distance themselves from direct dealing with the Afghan government. To ensure that Afghanistan economy can be stabilized, the OIC has played an essential role with the pledge fund to prevent Afghanistan economic collapse. In this context, OIC was established a humanitarian trust fund under the aegis of the Islamic Development Bank Group to serve as a vehicle to channel humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan, including in partnership with other actors. For the second one is United Nations. The United Nations, an organization called United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, or also known as UNAMA, was established in 2002 at the request of the government of Afghanistan to assist it and the people of Afghanistan in laying the foundation for sustainable peace and development. UNAMA is also an organization classified as a special political mission whose funding comes from the United Nations budget. UNAMA has played a variety of roles, primarily to support the Afghan government in peace and reconciliation efforts between the United States and Afghanistan, monitor human rights, protect civilians, and so on. Furthermore, the United Nations play an important role in developing and professionalizing the Afghan National Police, overcoming opium production, supporting election, and providing humanitarian aid to Afghan inmates. I think that's all from me. Thank you, and I will pass to the next presenter.
Next, I will explain about the theory used to assess the international relation between United States and Afghanistan. The theory that will be discussed is neorealism. Realism refers to the competitive and conflictual side of international relations to ensure state survival. This theory is divided into two divisions, which is classical realism and neorealism. Neorealism emphasizes the influence of world power structure on the behavior of the states within the global hierarchical order. To guarantee their security, major powers occasionally display their strength internationally. It is difficult for peace to reign in a weak state with anarchic conditions. Instead, war is the only option. The element of opportunity and interest predict how the state will act. This is because every state seeks to material power that support their structure, as the position of it can transform states into powerful and weak ones. When the state gains material strength, it invests in political expertise and formulates a foreign policy that can maximize their security. However, this isn't the case for weak states. To apply the above theoretical concept of neorealism to the international relation between US and Afghanistan, the US has a position of a great power and tends to get involved in hegemony-related issues. This is seen in US engagement in the Afghan war, which shows the country standing towards global hegemony. In the context of neorealism, the reason for US continuous hegemony is to maintain their status as the sole major power while also preserving security. The US capitalized on political crisis and raised the intensity of regional issues. Such weak states eventually descend into chaos and conflict because they are unable to handle politics. In the specific instance of Afghanistan, the US opportunistically invaded the vulnerable state following the 9/11 incident, all the while justifying their action with war on terror foreign policy. This hegemony has caused a regional turmoil in Afghanistan and posing a danger to other nearby weak states. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I bid to my respected lecturer and so all my fellow friends. My name is Amir Haikal bin Abdul Hamid, and I will present on the part of the implications of the US and Afghanistan conflict in terms of economics. First of all, the Taliban retake of power has worsened one of the world's biggest humanitarian crises in Afghanistan, which has long been one of the poorest and most aid-reliant nations. Several US policies action has appeared significant to the economic collapse that underlay the humanitarian catastrophe. Prior to the August 2021, Afghanistan was already suffering a humanitarian catastrophe due to the warfare, drought, and the COVID-19 pandemic, which has
worsened by the economic crisis. In particular, as US military withdrew from Afghanistan, Washington has put sanctions on the new Afghan government, including the freezing of more than $9 billion in central bank assets, exacerbating an economic crisis and hardships. Even though we only perceive the repercussions of Afghanistan's, the American government is also affected. Throughout the 20-year war in Afghanistan, the United States has squandered 2 decades worth of opportunities due to the expenses of the conflict. The United States government was obligated to create a long-term plan for the physical and mental rehabilitations of individuals affected. The war that was waged to attain this purpose was ultimately deemed a failure. Thus, it is clear that US and Afghanistan war was deeply affected by this issue.
In this slide, I will be presenting about the implications on human rights. In Afghanistan, the impact of the crisis that occurred is that the people in the country have been denied various rights from various aspects ranging from political freedom to social contacts. After the United States withdrew its military presence in Afghanistan, which gave way to the Taliban, women were not given freedom to various things, especially in the context of work, education, and sports. In the employment sector, women are also prevented from working in formal jobs, except in specialized sectors such as health and education. The Taliban has also cancelled the reopening of high school for the girl students, sparking confusion, condemnation, and criticism among parents, UN, the diplomats, and the humanitarian agencies. Thus, women are seen to be neglected in their needs, such as the freedom to leave the house and move around in community affairs, showing its devastating state of human rights pertaining to women in Afghanistan.
Next, we will move in the context of workplace security. The issue of global security as an important thing that need to be seen. We will talk about the relationship between the United States of America and Afghanistan. We will evaluate this issue from 2 points, namely illegal weapons and terroristry. First, we will talk about the illegal weapons. The Taliban have not given any commitment regarding the problem of selling illegal weapons, and some are even part of this activity. The evidence is according to United Nations report, weapons made in the United States that were left behind by military operation were stopped. Illegal traders have sold those weapons in the border area of Afghanistan and Pakistan. This will directly threaten regional security, especially countries bordering Afghanistan, such as Pakistan and Iran. In addition, the biggest concern voiced by the international community is the terrorist threat under the Taliban. Western countries expect Afghanistan to be a site and transit center for terrorist activity that have the potential to carry out attacks in Europe and America. The threats given are not only aimed to the country involved in the conflict but also apply for the other countries. The proof is, Indonesian expert and official, one, potentially posing a major security threat to the Southern Asian country. Complicating the situation, the Taliban is seen to have made no effort to curb the activity of the terrorist group, which is now seen to be enjoying greater freedom than before.
For the recommendations in terms of economics, the first action is the US must take it to lift the sanction imposed on Afghanistan's new government, which froze more than $9 billion in central bank assets. This is due to the fact that these restrictions have led to a financial crisis and poverty. When the sanctions are lifted, the Afghan government will regain their assets in the central bank and seem to have a significant fund that can provide aid to its people. Since the United States has withdrawn from the war, they have no jurisdictions to restrict the government of other states or prevent Afghanistan from exercising its right. Moving to the next context of the United States repercussions, we can observe that they have endured defeat and lost national assets through the death of soldiers during the battle with Taliban. Furthermore, the weapons that are provided to the soldiers are extremely expensive. So, in dealing with difficulties like this, we must figure out the most effective and efficient solutions. For instance, the United States can rely on the service of the United Nations due to the Taliban use of brutality and dominance to conquer Afghanistan. By leveraging the force and United Nations assistance, the conflict in Afghanistan can be perceived as an international issue that must be addressed collectively and not as a unilateral issue within states. If this situation is managed in advance and appropriate considerations are taken for both countries, many lives can be saved. Hence, United Nations capabilities can be used in accordance with their purpose, which is to preserve global peace.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Azri bin Sadud, the next presenter, and I will present about the recommendation in the context of human rights. In order to solve human rights related issue, the Taliban need to promise to be more flexible in giving women the right they deserve compared to their first government where they were denied all their rights. Issues such as alone education for women, freedom of women are among the things that need to be emphasized. Developed countries also need to help provide funds to Afghanistan in effort to rebuild school, shelter, housing, and so on. In the context of non-state actor, international organizations need to play a role in bringing the importance of Afghanistan human rights to the international level. The United Nations should also present a resolution to urge Afghanistan to implement human rights policies that are fair to their people, especially for women. In addition, the United Nations needs to send a delegation to Afghanistan to guide and provide exposure to the